All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in person and online. We appreciate you joining us tonight. We are here for the fourth and final community workshop for the City of Santa Clara's Vision Zero project. My name is Regina Merrill, and I'll be moderating this evening's meeting. And so before we get started, I'm going to go over a few logistics for tonight so everyone knows how to participate, ask their questions, whether you're in person or online. So for those of you joining in person and online, if you're not able to stay for the entirety of the meeting, this meeting is being recorded and it will be posted to the project website after tonight. You can find out more about this project at the city's website at santaclaracalifornia.gov/vision0. And if you're online or in person, you can also scan that QR code. If you have any follow-up questions for the team tonight, you can leave us a voicemail or send us an email as well. So there's many ways to reach us. So we're so glad that you can be here this evening, but please also feel free to stay connected after. For those of you joining us online, thank you so much. If you want to go ahead and rename yourself with your first name and last initial. And then a few other functions for this evening. You will have the opportunity later during a few facilitated discussions, as well as the Q&A portion, to participate by leaving your question in the Q&A, and we'll read that out loud. You can also raise your hand if you prefer to ask your question out loud, so that is an option. Feel free, if you have questions at any point during the presentation, if you're online, to drop those in the Q&A. We are going to prioritize questions received from the in-person attendees first, and then we will move on to all of the questions that are in the Q&A so we can answer those all at once. But please don't hesitate to drop those throughout the presentation, and we'll make sure to address them this evening. Additionally, that is how you see the Q&A portion, and so we will answer those all verbally tonight. And then if you do prefer to ask a question, as we've already demonstrated this evening by some folks joining, you can press *9 on your phone to raise your hand. And if you're joining via phone, and then we'll unmute you to ask a question, and then it's *6 to unmute. And now I'm going to introduce Nicole with the City of Santa Clara to introduce the project team.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for attending this meeting. My name is Nicole He. I am a project manager for this Vision Zero project. I also work at the Traffic Engineering Division at Public Works Department with the city. And also tonight in the room with me, we have Raul Garcia, Senior Civil Engineer in the Traffic Engineering Division as well. We are also supported by a couple of other colleagues, Steve Chan, our Transportation Manager, Carol Chariot, Principal Planner, and Michael Liu, our Assistant Director. So now I'm going to pass it over to Robert, Project Consultant, to go over the rest of the presentation slides.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. And good evening. We're certainly happy to be here this evening. And wanted to, before I dive right into the presentation, wanted to introduce myself and the project team and the consultant team. My name is Robert Paderna with Kinley Horn, supported by Mike Colte, also with Kinley Horn, and our engagement consultants, Regina Merrill with Circle Point, and Chloe with Circle Point as well. All right. All right, so as shown on the slide, this is a brief agenda, and these are the discussion points that we're going to be presenting this evening. We'll go over the project timeline, where we are today. I will also present the draft outline of the Vision Zero action plan as the project is moving towards completion, and all the great outreach and analysis that we've conducted thus far will be summarized in the draft Vision Zero plan, which you'll have an opportunity to review, and we'll dive right into that in a moment. The conceptual safety improvement maps will be presented, and it's being made available online as well. And we'll end on next steps, what happens after the Vision Zero plan is adopted. And at the very end, we'll have time for Q&A. All right, so what's shown on the slide is a project timeline graphic. So the project started last fall of last year. Really, the early focus was on community outreach and conducting the collision data analysis, in which we've had the opportunity to collect 8 years of collision data and as part of our review, develop preliminary improvements. This was the focus of our second community meeting, which took place in March earlier in the year. We've also developed priority projects based on the collision data analysis, the high energy network, and inclusive of community and stakeholder input. And aside from the engineering focused infrastructure improvements, we've also identified actionable strategies and then an implementation plan to establish a framework for advancing Vision Zero in the near and long term. And that was a focus of our third community meeting in May. And the plan, as shown at the bottom of the slide, is to bring the draft plan once completed in late August, September timeframe. We'll post it on the city's Vision Zero project webpage, and that'll be posted for public comment. And we'll be taking the final plan, or the city will be taking the final plan to City Council for approval in early 2026. All right, this shows a project plan outline of the Vision Zero document that you'll have an opportunity to review. And that starts with the introduction. We'll be presenting on about Vision Zero and why the city is going through this effort. Community engagement summary will provide a summary of all the community engagement that's been conducted over the course of the project. Present the preliminary safety analysis results in the document, the countermeasure toolbox, and last but not least, the action plan. And we'll be going through, over the course of the next hour, we'll be going through each of these chapters in greater detail. And that starts with the about Vision Zero section of the draft plan. This is really where we tee up, what is Vision Zero, why the city is endeavoring to achieve Vision Zero. As we had discussed in previous meetings, the Vision Zero is a strategy to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries on the city's Santa Clara roadways. It represents a commitment to making Santa Clara streets safer, and that's safer for all road users, motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians. And doing so by implementing the Safe Systems approach. And that's based on the premise that death and serious injuries on roadways are unacceptable and preventable, and that humans make mistakes. Redundancy is critical, making sure the road network is resilient so that collisions that do occur are less severe and don't result in fatality or severe injury. It's also an acknowledgement that humans are vulnerable, and the focus on reducing speeds and the kinetic energy during impact, particularly in collisions that impact pedestrians and cyclists, is paramount. And last but not least, responsibility is shared, and that's shared among all project stakeholders, including staff and members of the public. The project goal is to develop a framework for roadway improvements, newer updated plans and programs and policies to promote enhanced road safety for all road users, and also education and outreach campaigns to continue promoting the city's Vision Zero initiative and educating the community on safe practices on the road network. So the why behind pursuing Vision Zero, Vision Zero provides an opportunity for improved road safety for all road users. The action plan will focus on eliminating traffic fatalities and severe injuries by implementing safety measures for all road users, including vulnerable road users and motorists. And that promotes an environment where everyone can navigate the city in a safe manner. Also promoting sustainable and active transportation by prioritizing a safer infrastructure for non-motorized transportation modes. The Vision Zero plan will encourage residents to adopt healthier and more sustainable means for transportation, reducing the carbon footprint and reducing environmental impact. And enhancing community livability, which is crucial. By reducing traffic-related collisions, the Vision Zero plan creates a safer, more livable environment for residents, which can improve the overall quality of life and foster a sense of community in Santa Clara. The photo, there's a few photos sprinkled in of pedestrians and cyclists throughout the city using the roadways. Unfortunately, there's a image of a memorial that's located at Montague Expressway in Agnew from a motorcycle-involved fatality. And, that's just one of 40 fatal collisions that have occurred over the 8-year period from 2016 to 2023. So that's 40 lives that were lost on city streets, and that's far too many. That's 40 too many. All right, so moving on to the community engagement section of the report. So community engagement is such a critical element in development of the city's Vision Zero plan. It provides an opportunity to gain insights on safety challenges, both general safety challenges and location-specific issues. That's in recognition that review of collision data alone doesn't tell the complete picture. So over the course of the project, we've conducted 3 community workshops to date, this being the 4th. We've attended numerous in-person events where we were able to gain insights on safety challenges through those one-on-one conversations at various pop-up events or community events that are listed on the slide, dating back to September of last year, where we attended the Art and Wine Festival, to most recently the Bike to Work Day in mid-May. We've also launched 3 rounds of online surveys and attended various city commission meetings, including the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, the Youth Commission, and the Senior Advisory Commission. And all those events provided unique insights on safety challenges that, again, don't always make its way and show up on the collision reports, but it's impactful to understand where near misses are happening, where unsafe behavior, there's a prevalence of unsafe behavior from road users that are occurring, to try to, again, get to the root of the issue and identify improvements that are infrastructure and non-infrastructure focused to improve conditions. Speaking to the community survey, the last community survey, so we launched a second survey back in February, which closed in the beginning of April. So it was open for 7 weeks in total. The survey aimed to assess perceptions of traffic-related issues on the city's high-entry network and get feedback on potential safety improvements. That survey gathered 729 responses, which was really robust amount of feedback from 621 unique contributors. Those detailing concerns related to road safety and on specific segments on the draft high-entry network. Of the respondents, over 540 were Santa Clara residents. And again, this data provided really good information on near misses and location-specific safety concerns, and are supplemental to the collision data gathered from police reports after reported collisions. The survey number 3 is currently live and will be live through July 13th, as shown on the slide. There's a QR code shown on the slide, which you could take a photo of and access the current online survey. There's also QR codes at most, if not all, of the tables that you should be able to use to navigate to the online survey as well. And we certainly welcome your input. Even if you had participated in previous rounds of survey, that the nature of the questions as the project progressed really informs the next phase of the project, and in this case, informing the draft plan. Right, moving on to the safety analysis. So the project team performed an analysis of collision data from 2016 to 2023. And that's 8 years of collision data that was collected and analyzed, which the draft plan will include the collision data summary with breakdown of collision history over the 8-year period in the appendices. So we'd encourage you to review that as well. As part of the analysis, we've identified a high-entry network, which represents intersections and roadway segments throughout the city, which experience the disproportionate number of of injury, collisions, and fatalities. Shown on the slide, approximately 60% of all collisions occurred on 16% of the road network. And that's reflected on the map towards the right of the slide with the blue lines. That does include county-maintained expressways and the state-maintained El Camino Real within the city limits. Building off of the high entry network that you saw on the last slide, we also identified a subset of corridors that were atop the list based on collision density and injury severity. And that's what's reflected on the map on the right with an overlay of the colored lines. And just to recognize that it may be hard to read, but the yellow priority corridors represent city streets. And then there's a magenta for state El Camino Real, and then the orange for the county maintained expressways. These represent locations where priority high energy network corridors would be developed and included in the plan with specific safety improvements and countermeasures that have been identified. The projects would be developed, prioritized for safety intervention using the safety countermeasures that have been identified and included in the countermeasure toolbox. And that was presented in a prior meeting. The improvements generally include roadway improvements, which include raised medians, road reallocation or lane reallocation, street lighting, just to name a few. Intersection improvements, including high visibility crosswalks, dedicated left turn lanes, left turn arrows at signals, bike signals, and roundabouts. Signs and markings, including advanced stop bars, LED enhanced stop signs and warning signs and speed feedback signs. And bicycle and pedestrian focused improvements, including buffer separated bike lanes, pedestrian refuge islands, bulb outs, and mid-block crosswalk enhancements. And that's just to name a few. Mike, later on in the presentation, Mike is going to go over some additional countermeasures that are included in the toolbox. And we also have the toolbox off to the side of the room for those that are able to stick around after the meeting and may have questions. In reviewing the collision data, we also identified collision profiles, and that's really intended to highlight and understand factors that are leading to fatalities and serious injuries on the road network. 13% of all fatal and severe injury collisions were involving bicycles or pedestrians. 15% of all, and these percentages are based on fatal and severe injury collisions. So 15% involved alcohol. 13% involved speeding drivers. 44%, again, of collisions leading to fatalities or serious injuries occurred at night. And 15% involved children or seniors over 65. So these are just a few of the collision profiles that are going to be presented in the draft Vision Zero plan. And those will be presented along with specific countermeasures that are responsive to those areas of concern. All right, with that, I'll turn it on to Mike to talk about countermeasure toolbox.
Thank you, Robert. As was mentioned, Mike Colte, also with Kinley Horn. And we're just going to touch on this countermeasure toolbox section prior to going into the action plan real briefly. As Robert mentioned, we did go over this at the last workshop in detail and have lots of discussion. I am going to walk through them. They all also, the exact same ones are on the poster boards. So we're going to have time afterwards at the end. It could be online. There'll be time for questions or afterwards in person. If you really want to dive into the countermeasures, we are available for that. These are the infrastructure improvements, as was mentioned by Robert, many of those key ones. So they're broken up into different categories on screen as well as on the poster boards. You've got what can you do when you're in a roadway segment. So it was mentioned before, enhanced lighting is a proven safety countermeasure, highly effective. pavement markers and medians. We're really trying to separate users in time and space, as is emphasized by the safe system approach. And then here as well, those roadway reallocations, trying to make sure there's enough space for all road users, including pedestrian and bicyclists on a street. Other can also be called a road diet. In this case, road reallocation can be done in a restriping project fairly inexpensively. Signal modifications, including protected left turn phases. That's another area that's highly vulnerable to severe crash. Those left turns at a signal or unsignalized intersection, this being unprotected at a signalized intersection. So making them protected phasing does improve that timing. Leading pedestrian intervals, also getting those pedestrians out into the intersection so they're vulnerable before motorists start jetting through the intersection, becoming more and more common and shown to be effective on that signal. And they're also just signal timing can be done to help improve safety overall. Going into bicycle and pedestrian improvements, again, trying to separate users in time and space, so those separated bike lanes, but also some signing and marking in these areas. And there's a lot of enhancements trying to get at crossings, make those more clear in multiple ways for both the motorists as well as the pedestrians, and really trying to enhance the visibility of those crosswalks so they don't surprise users. Signing and marking, again, really trying things to pop, like the retro reflective backplates and good sheeting and retro reflectivity on those signs, as well as special signs in curves. Even in an urban area, there can be areas for that curve signing as well. Again, mentioned intersection design improvements and speed management on this slide. Closing slip lanes, those were popular for many years. Dedicated right turn lanes, and I think we all know those lead to high speed as well, often not scanning very well. So actually, some of those improvements going back to just having a regular turn radius at the corner, bringing that pedestrian closer to the intersection, more visibility, and slowing down those vehicles. And other aspects here, directional median openings restrict certain left turns, especially those vulnerable left turns off the side street, as well as other splitter islands limiting those dangerous turns. So then speed management, all of these are really critical as we're trying to focus on fatal and serious injury, not all crashes. So speed feedback signs have shown to be effective, especially in the general vicinity. If you really want to slow someone down right at a particular location, the speed feedback signs, roundabouts, speed humps, traffic circles, and chokers, chicanes, and bulb outs, all effective at managing speeds at critical locations. We're going to go through a facilitated discussion now, then we're going to go back to really the action plan and talk about, yes, infrastructure, but also other strategies we're going to have. But right now, before that, we are taking a break for Phil's facilitated discussion on these prior sections. And I'll turn it over. Going through this, I'll go through the question, then Regina will assist, especially online. Anyways, here, so any of the sections we've discussed so far, kind of taking a break. We've spoke at you for a while. So we had introduction, the about Vision Zero. We talked about the engagement, what's happened. There's a lot that's happened over the last year. Then diving into that detailed safety analysis, the high injury network, collision profiles, the countermeasure toolbox I just mentioned. We want to break and see if there are any questions on the safety analysis at how the countermeasures will be incorporated, although we will talk more actually about action plans and implementation. So I'll pause now and see if there's any questions in the room. Yes, go ahead. Wait 1 second before we give you the speaker for online so they can hear.
Sure. So I live not far from Monroe and San Tomas Expressway.
San Tomas and where?
San Tomas Expressway.
And? I think you said across street. I couldn't hear that.
Right. So it's where the trail is
Okay,
also
yep.
located. It's a major crossing. So that has a very unique problem in that many people who ride their bikes and whatever coming from the north don't have a fixed way to get safely on the trail. If you're coming from the other side, the trail goes right up to the entrance. It's awkward because it's a length of about 40 feet. That's your only choice is to ride on the sidewalk or come against the traffic, the bike traffic, or go out around them if somebody's coming the other way. That puts the bike rider in danger.
Okay,
So the only thing that could fix that is moving the sidewalk back so that there's two lanes, one coming from the one direction, one from the other direction. So those who are coming up on South Drive and making a left turn have a way to get on STACT, the trail. So I don't know how much right of way the city owns against the property owner there, but I believe people have talked to the property owner and she had no objection to the sidewalk being adjusted for the safety of pedestrians. So I think it'd be helpful if the city would look into that because it's an accident waiting to happen. In fact, I live in the area and that's how I access the trail, but I'm not riding a bike, I'm riding a recumbent trike. So I'm a little wider. I need more turning radius. So it's a really awkward entry there. That whole entry to the trail could be made wider. You've got two posts there. I guess that's to keep supposedly a car from driving there. I think that's unlikely, but those two posts make it very difficult to make the turn into there if you're riding a cargo bike, which is 3 wheels, or a recumbent trike. So that whole intersection needs a lot of, or not more thought to improve that.
thank you. And definitely, we are taking those type of specific locations and issues, and we have a recording here. But I'll say if there's time at the end, if you still have time, I'll look at the map and look at that more in particular with you if you've got time at the end as well, but we did record it and we'll recognize that.
Yeah, I'll make time. I don't have too much time. I have to take my wife out for her birthday tonight.
Yes.
So I'll stick around long enough to give my inputs. The other input I had was just in general on some of the bike paths. There are other human propelled vehicles that travel those. And that's both a recumbent trike where the rider is tending to be leaning back further away, or cargo trikes, which pretty much looks like a regular trike, only it has 2 wheels in the front or back, and it has a cargo area to carry groceries and whatever. Particularly with the cargo bikes, when they're on a bike trail that's really tilted, they're in danger because it's kind of hard to maintain your balance. And a number of the bike trails that go over overpasses, like the main street that's out here that goes over the railroad tracks. First, the trail is barely wide enough for a bike, let alone a cargo bike or a trike. It's slanted to the side and it's so narrow that if there's any debris in the gutter there, it's going to blow somebody's tire. So that any place where there's a bike trail going over an overpass, you need to leave, we really should leave enough room for safety of a cargo bike or a recumbent trike.
Absolutely.
And it'll help all those even on 2 wheels to have a little more room here because they could also run into trouble with debris in that area. I think I had one other comment saved here. That's it for now. I'll let someone else speak. If I think of something else, I'll raise my hand. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Supriya. I live in Cala Drive and Gale Avenue. I'm here because I like the mission of Vision Zero, and I work for a company called Brembo. We have similar, vision, and we are working towards that. A few things. I wanted to understand what kind of data analysis and how did you come up with the measures that you guys are planning to implement in terms of vehicle or anything apart from signboards that you guys put up?
Yeah. Sure, needed. The data analysis, we did look in detail at all of the prior crash history with the focus on fatal and serious injury and looked at what those causes were. It was shown here, the high injury network, those locations, but in addition to that, and as we go forward, as mentioned, we are looking at what those crash causes are to link to the countermeasures. The primary data that we do currently have available is that is the crash data and what's reported within the crash data. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Robert?
No. Reiterating the, based on the collision data analysis, we also reviewed the feedback that we received through in-person and online engagement to supplement and get a better sense of what the root issues are in development of the safety countermeasures and improvements that have been identified. But if you hadn't had the opportunity already to complete the online survey, that would be another great opportunity to provide feedback, also through the other platforms, including directly emailing the website. We'll show it again on screen. That could be a means to provide any site-specific input that we may or may not have received thus far.
Before the last workshop, that's when I did spend an hour cycling around Santa Clara prior to that, and I actually grew up cycling Santa Clara's roads, but it's been a while, so did that before. But then the main thing, we actually had also about obviously the crash data, but we had a big workshop and really spent the time pointing and circling at stuff for community feedback and incorporating that also, as Robert mentioned. So that was.
Is the crash data available online for the public to access, or it's?
All crash data is available from what used to be called Switters, now I think is Chris, but I don't know specifically.
Yeah, the crash data, excluding the property damage only crashes, are available through an online portal, TIMS. So traffic incident mapping system, but we are also going to be providing a summary of the collisions and collision types and other data in summary form with the draft plan. So that'll be appended to the draft plan that will be made available. Yeah.
I also, there's a number of statewide resources with direct individual crash data from CHP, TIMS, some UC Berkeley Safe Track. We're also managing the state's strategic highway safety plan, and there is a dashboard there, and I can make that link available where you can filter to every jurisdiction and direct it's statewide, but you can filter the city and get 10 years of crash data and a year's worth of provisional, the most recent data there also.
Hi, my name is Toshi. Live in Townsend area in the Briarwood elementary school area. And I noticed that because since I retired last year, I ride bicycle a lot and I go to bike trail like you mentioned, but that place kind of a bit dangerous. And I had an accident, but I called the police, but police does not report it because I didn't hit the car. Yeah. Because I hit the brake, I horned it, but he's just backing up from a driveway. So that's just not the improvement stuff. That's the people, how you drive the habit, Nowadays, a new vehicle has a backup mirror. They don't even turn around your shoulder to look at that, what's behind your vehicle, So, I think best fundamentals thing you have to do is like, I was in the high school, we have driver's ed. I think you guys should tell local high school how to drive or some kind of, class to, be aware of what's going on. That's the first thing I like to mention. And another thing is I noticed your project about the Flora Vista and El Camino, about the turn left signal. I like that because I use the road a lot, intersection a lot. And people from DMV, I don't know, they just got a driver's license or what? They think they have right away turning left on El Camino, coming from DMV north on Flora Vista to El Camino. I just go straight and they don't even stop. They don't even look at me. So that's, I want the improvement on the signal up there. And also another thing is Monroe and the Norbury in the intersection is north side of the intersection has a signal is now it's a apartment complex that they built, I don't know how many years ago, but ever since that apartment is built, all this resident or whoever live there, they don't have enough parking space in their garage, so they over park on the street, on the Norbury Street, and also on the Monroe Street. I thought that we passed the proposition, I forgot the proposition number is, and that I noticed that that's going to the east on the Monroe, there's a sign say, do not park vehicle higher than 6 feet. Guess what? There's a van park there all the time, more than 9 feet tall, and you can't even see the people, pedestrian waiting on the signal to change there. So I thought that they're gonna say, what, 20 feet from intersection, you're supposed to be, you cannot park anymore, but there's always people park car there. And it used to be, there's a red color on the curve before the apartment is built, so nobody parked there. So I can see the student walking across the street and whatever, but now I can't even see them. So I always slow down to make sure when you turn into the south of Norbury Street from Monroe, I'm gonna make sure there's nobody walking on the sidewalk or they're crossing the street. So I want you to make sure, I don't know how much budget you guys have it, but I think the curb on the corner is supposed to be painted red, so no car being parked there.
The city, that is new legislation under the term like the daylighting law to not park right at the corners, and the city is just beginning to implement and enforce that. So any specific issues, I think you could follow up there, but that's something that's just kind of being worked on and new right now. Should improve.
Okay, good. So I want the improvement, so that's what you guys are
Improve that.
doing. So I appreciate what you guys try to do. Safety is more important because that's the main street that all these students walk into, going to the Wilcox High School, So I see, almost near, Cruz, whatever you call it, So I want you guys to improve that, section, especially student walking, Calabasas, all these Calabasas, a lot of students, because I walk in the morning too, and a lot of students ride bicycle and walk to school, and the four-way stop in the Monroe and the Calabasas or Cabrillo to Calabasas in the four-way stop, people doesn't even stop completely. It's just rolling stop, or I don't know, California stop, whatever you call it. I mean, it's very dangerous. I see a near accident so many times over there. You should put the speed bump, whatever.
Yeah, so we are looking at those locations, and going back to your first comment on the education, that is something at schools, it's something that's being looked into statewide as well as specifically within this plan. And I mean, even obviously, I think we've all seen that there needs to be more education with the school-age children, middle school on bicycles and what's classified as e-bikes and what aren't legal and all of those issues. So that's another thing that's being looked at as well, the education. With good comments, yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions from the room? All right. And folks online, we know you have your hands raised and there's a few questions in the Q&A, so we will address those also. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Michael. I grew up in Sweden of the Vision Zero fame. And I think my main comment here is I see a lot of comments about or ideas about signage. Signage. I don't think that was how Vision Zero was a success there. There was a lot of redesigning the road such that it makes sense to drive in a particular way, to slow down at this intersection, to park farther away from the crosswalk, and so on. So I think one of my first comments when I moved here was, frankly, why are there so many stop signs, and why are all the stop signs treated as if they were yield signs? Do drivers even know what a yield sign is? So yes, I understand you want a stop sign here, stop sign here, but I think that most drivers no longer really pay attention to that. They treat it as a yield sign, and there is no way to mark that in this particular intersection, you really have to come to a complete stop because it's not safe to roll through. You have no tool to tell the driver that. The second thing is that one of the central tenets of Vision Zero is everybody makes mistakes. No mistake should cause a serious injury. Education, yes, for all means, that's good. But engineering needs to follow that in a way to reduce the consequences of those mistakes that's always happening. And that's coming back to the signage. One sign, it's easy to miss. A lot of drivers miss this sign or that sign because there are so many of them in this road environment around here. If the road is designed in a different way, that's a little bit more of a continuous reminder, a little bit easier, I think, for the driver to understand, to take in what is the purpose of this road? What's the purpose of how to drive here? How am I supposed to treat this road? Thank you.
Agree 100%, and this plan will reflect those same principles. And this plan is not an emphasis on signing. It can be a component in certain areas, but it is on infrastructure. I did spend a year abroad in college in England, and I last year was in Sweden and Copenhagen, looking at that infrastructure, and met with the Swedish transport safety lead. And definitely agree with you, what the priorities are, and that's the priority here.
Any other questions from in the room?
Right, so I also want to mention two other factors, and that is the access to the signal crossing lights. Some of the lights are on a 6-8 inch high concrete barrier, and the city's made a narrow passageway for pedestrians to walk up and push the button. And maybe if you're on a two-wheel bike, you might be able to get through there and push the button. But you can't do that on a trike. You would damage the trike to try to get in that narrow passage to push the button to signal the light. You're doing that because the light's not changing. You're not being detected. If you go out in the traffic lane, the sensors don't always work to detect that the trike is there. We're the light in the front and heavy in the back. So I don't know what the sensing technology is, whether it's proximity to metal or something else, weight. So frequently I have to wait until somebody else comes along and pushes the button, or a car comes and trips the light, and then I can drive across. So that's one concern. The other thing I've noticed on the new paving that's being done on the San Tomas Expressway, they're being very careful at the crossing to put a vehicle setback about 6 feet so the cars know where to stop and not push into the sidewalk. Why isn't that being done for all the other crossings in the city, not just on this expressway, which is the county doing that? But what is the city plan to fix all those crossings where there's no reminder where the driver should actually stop? Because most of the time I see cars coming right up onto or over the crosswalk. And pedestrians aren't able to safely make their way.
Recommendations, and one of the recommendations we'll get to in the next section talks about action plan, talks about addressing design standards so that stuff like that is incorporated into systemically all future restriping. So this is some things we're going to be recommending move forward to make those types of changes. Yeah.
Good to hear.
You want to go online?
We'll take a few from online. All right, so first question from the Q&A, will the plan identify improvements for high entry network streets that are not on a priority corridor?
Can you repeat? Because I heard high injury streets, but not priority corridors, maybe.
Sure, so will the plan identify improvements for high entry network streets that are not on a priority corridor?
All right, thanks for the question. So the plan will include specific improvements, safety improvements for the priority high entry network corridors, which are the subset of the high entry network that resulted in the higher frequency and density of collisions. However, with that said, the countermeasure toolbox will also be a key component of the plan, and that'll include the safety countermeasures that Mike had noted, that could be systemically or site-specifically applied at other locations, including other high entry network locations and other locations outside of the high entry network.
Thanks so much. Next question. Were the outlier factors considered in the safety analysis? For example, large events, sports, concerts, et cetera, when the influx of visitors comes into the city?
Sorry, Gina, can you repeat that one more time?
Sure, so were outlier factors considered in the safety analysis? So for example, large events, how does that affect the data that was analyzed for this?
Those events were not factored into the collision data analysis review. However, there was several references to safety concerns that were brought up in other forums, including the online survey that included reference to, for example, Levi's Stadium events, which we had noted and incorporated. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, and one more question from the Q&A, and then we have a few hands raised out loud, so we'll get to you all next. What is the process of evaluating the effectiveness of the countermeasures and possible course correction? Are there any human-led / AI-assisted solutions that can be used to analyze the success of the program, learn, and adjust accordingly?
So the countermeasures in the toolbox are comprised of proven safety countermeasures, and those are identified through the Federal Highway Administration, so FHWA. And with that, and will also be summarized in the plan, is the crash reduction factor, or CRF, is a factor based on studies that have been conducted nationally specific to the countermeasures. There are data points that support the quantification, or that support and quantify the effectiveness based on collision severity and collision reduction.
In addition, so definitely what we're recommending already has been shown to be effective. However, we are also recommending, and we'll talk next about really an active implementation. This isn't intended to be a one-time analysis, a report that then sits on the shelf. The recommendations, which we'll talk about, include active implementation, future analysis, and yes, reviewing what has changed. And that would pop up then if a countermeasure goes in and things do not improve, or for whatever reason get worse. So there would be future review of effectiveness and where crashes, fatality and serious injuries in particular, are going up or going down.
Thanks so much. Okay, Ken, I see your hand has been raised. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute to ask your question out loud.
Yeah, if there's a lot of people waiting, you could catch me later. I'm on the working group, Vision Zero working group. So if there's some other attendees, I prefer to have them go first. I don't want to, I've got quite a few questions, but maybe they'll be answered by other attendees. Would you mind coming back to me after the others get a chance?
Sure thing. Thanks, Ken. We're going to move over to Phil H. I see your hand is raised, so I'm going to unmute you now or allow you to talk. And go ahead, Phil. Phil, we're having a little trouble hearing you if you are trying to speak. All right, Phil, if you want to go ahead and type your question in the chat, or we can try coming back to you, and I'll go to another attendee who has their hand raised in the meantime. Pamela, I'm going to ask you to unmute, and if you want to ask your question out loud.
Thank you. Yes, this is Pamela. And kudos to one or two individuals who mentioned about education. I do appreciate all the public engagement events you have been to. We all are responsible. I know we all have the right of way in a crosswalk at a green light, but I think children, well, anyone of any age, frankly, needs to know situational awareness. And I'm not just referring to cell phones, but things get pretty lackadaisical. Some people do trust, and that's great. Like the gentleman said, at least my generation grew up with a component of driver education called sportsmanlike driving. Well, I'm not even sure how many people know the basics anymore. And traffic reports on the radio stations say, power's out at a certain intersection, treat it like a four-way stop. And I'm thinking, well, they don't have time to educate people what that is, because I don't think they know much about that anymore. But yes, I think all levels. Anyway, I live on Monroe between the two overpasses, Scott and San Tomas. I'm a driver. I don't bicycle. I certainly respect the lanes. Just the average city streets, to be honest with you now, not just major intersections or high traffic areas. I have called the police non-emergency number to report on a Sunday erratic driving, found out later that person was under the influence. I have had people try to pass me on a city street, which means the rightmost is a bike lane and then where people park at the curb. So either people aren't paying attention, influence, under the influence, I don't know. But I just can't stress enough about, in addition to the public engagement at major events, something, and I know it requires money and forethought, but education in the schools, don't take anything for granted, don't start at a certain age, plant the seed early. And you're also planting the seed for if and when they become drivers later. So again, I have called the non-emergency number of the police in Santa Clara. One did respond, the person had moved on. But I just want to leave with this thought. It's too easy to think someone else will report something. And I know if we're on a freeway and cars are going more than 100 miles an hour, you're doing lucky to remember what the car color was. And if it's a major, did they take 280? Did they go 17? But I also feel if something does happen literally down the road, that there is a record of erratic driving on a particular vehicle's part. And I just feel as a proactive citizen that that's also a responsibility we can take for those who are not driving properly. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pamela. Okay, Phil, I see you put your question in the Q&A. Thanks so much, and sorry about the audio troubles. Phil's question is, there was a mention in the potential improvements of various Class 2 or Class 4 buffered bike lanes. He was wondering if someone could explain more about what each class of bike lane means in terms of safety.
For the most part, there's a combination of the right facility in the right place, ideally. And with the safe system approach, we're trying to separate users in time and space, and especially at speeds where a fatal or serious injury would happen. So that protected bike lane then is an improvement over a standard, as well as a shared use path has the right place. But it really is, the fact it really depends on what roadway you're looking at, what the right facility is for those conditions and for that safety. So there's no one size fits all, and there is a place for all of the bike facilities. but ideally trying to separate users of time and space, but everyone has a pluses and minuses. The challenges with protected facilities, a shared use path or a protected bicycle lane is that you're only protected on the segment. And potentially you can create a situation where the intersection or the driveway crossing is actually less safe, or it becomes an unsafe location at those crossings when someone crosses the bikeway. So you really need to look at all situations.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, Ken, it looks like your questions are the remaining ones we have for this period. So do you want to go ahead and ask them off mute, or do you prefer the ones in the Q&A at this point?
Yeah. Hello. Yes, I would like to I'll read them off and banter a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. Just for everybody's benefit, I'm also on the Vision Zero working group, which meets with a lot of city officials, and it's very nice. I'm on the BPAC, the city's BPAC, so I appreciate this this program. Anyway, my questions are, and I'm still educating myself on a lot of the countermeasure that are in the toolbox. So I'll start with the first one. Where can raised pedestrian crosswalks and speed humps be installed? What streets and how much do they cost to install? And the reason I'm asking that is my understanding is that speed humps are limited to like 25-mile-per-hour residential streets. We only have one of those in town now. So I'm really intrigued with using more speed humps and raised pedestrian crosswalks to help motorists understand the need to slow down. Is that their intention? And maybe you can tell us where they can be used at this point and the cost.
Yeah, thanks for that comment, Ken. We don't have that list of locations as part of this effort. There is another subsequent effort that's going to be focused on neighborhood traffic calming and the update to that said plan as part of a subsequent effort. So I'd say stay tuned on that. I myself don't know the timeline, although we know that there is certainly some momentum in that regard, given the new countermeasures and improvements that are more geared towards those residential and local streets.
Okay, thank you. My next question is, what is the difference between traffic circles and roundabouts, and where is one used and the other not, and how much do they cost?
Generally speaking, traffic circles are a neighborhood traffic calming solution, so they're more geared towards lower volume, lower speed streets, whereas roundabouts are an intersection traffic control device that facilitates movement through an intersection without stopping. With regards to cost, we don't have. We could certainly look at that information, but understanding that it varies considerably. Roundabouts, generally speaking, take up more right of way at the corners, and that obviously introduces another element to the cost. So it varies significantly, but we could certainly provide some typical or a cost range for roundabout implementation.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I do hope that's in the report. Just give us a range of these things. So, people have an idea, we're comparing safety measures throughout the city, the public and the BPAC members and the staff. So we have an idea, where we want to spend the money first. We prioritize locations. And another question is, can you please review efforts to reduce speed limits throughout the city? What is the California legislature doing to reduce speed limit standards that the city traffic engineers use to post speed limits? Basically, to me, it seems like that would be the least expensive way to reduce collisions in the city. If we can get motorists particularly to drive slower, seems like that would help everybody at if you're inebriated or if you're, at night or you're walking, cycling, it seems to meet all your those issues that you brought up earlier in the presentation. So anything we can do to reduce speed, it would seem would be the first thing and easiest thing to do, but maybe that's not true. So could you fill us in on that?
Yeah, actually, speed reduction measures as part of is a key element of the actions and strategies. And I'll defer to Mike later on in the presentation. That's a topic that we're going to dive into in more detail.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the speed limit in the residential area, you can force it by put the speed bump. I know this is Briarwood, no, that's Briarwood Drive, I think. There has a speed bump there. I know that. But my question is, are you coordinating with City of Santa Clara Police Department to make to do the ticketing of the speeders? I mean, that will enforce the area that, the cop is there, I gotta slow down, that's the best way to do it. The people start talking so that, because people don't want to pay fine or go to the traffic school. I think I never see the cops in my neighborhood at all. Then all these people driving like a maniac. I know I drive 25 and I don't care about the freeway. I don't care driving 75, 80 miles an hour. I don't care less. But in the residential area, you gotta force it. By doing it, not like a speed bump or four-way stop or crosswalk or anything like that. We need to get the police department involved more so that we find these idiot drivers to pay the fine to help what you guys doing.
They are part of the working group that was mentioned as well as we are recommending as well as the enforcement as a component of this as well. So, yeah.
Okay.
They are
Because
partners.
I never see the police sitting there and waiting for the speeders. I never see it. I live in the Santa Clara for 38 years in my area, my same house. Never see it. In the Noble Street, I was driving one day, some idiot passed me, 25 miles an hour, and that guy passed my car. I mean, what an idiot, So first of all, like I mentioned about the high school education, about driver's ed or whatever, you guys can make it to do it. That'd be great. And then, like a lady said, you got to educate. And I told my wife when I walk every morning in a four-way stop or crosswalk, I'm going to make sure eye contact with drivers so they know I'm going to cross the street because otherwise they ignore us. Yeah.
Very good. We do have a little more presentation and then some more comments. Yeah, but there's all good comments.
So I live in Cala Drive and Gale Avenue. It's actually like three-way. There's that, main road and, our roads connect, my road connect to the main road. There's actually no stop sign. Also, like people park in the corner, like the turning, and we can't see the, vehicle coming from the other side. And there were instances where people were about to crash to my car and somehow I just stopped it and, I just missed. And my husband takes his bike and it is as in motorcycle as well as bicycle. So it is so difficult. Sometimes people can run into him. Just think about, small kids, using their cycles, bicycles or anything. And also there's a school, it's a primary school, like kindergarten or something. It's on the, like few yards away from that intersection. It is.
I believe we did look at that specifically at the last meeting. That was brought up as well. We can make sure of that identified, but I do believe we looked at that at the last, and we'll highlight that.
Okay, and they've just laid a new road there, and they were putting the crossing sign. It will be helpful if you can put the stop sign and also the no parking zone at the corner so that we can see the vehicles coming.
No other questions online for now, or if there are, we'll hold them for the Q&A session at the end. So go ahead and continue on.
Yeah, we'll have more time. I just want to get to some aspects, actual implementation, talk about how those countermeasures will come in on the infrastructure, but other aspects of the implementation as well. And there were some questions on that we'll address. So going on, the actual implementation includes those safety actions and strategies, and it will include actions and strategies across various categories. I'm going to talk about Vision Zero program initiatives, and then specific strategies and actions along safer people, safer speed, safer streets, safer vehicles, and post-crash care. And that is the safe system approach wheel. And really the key of one of the aspects, as well as humans are vulnerable, is the redundancy. So really trying to making sure you're addressing all of these. So at least one of those stops a fatality or serious injury from happening. Key aspects of the Vision Zero working group and other stakeholders are to collaboratively support implementation. So the working group, along with Vision Zero, is going to continue going and monitoring that program implementation and collaborate on implementation efforts and those initiatives. As well, the city will be moving forward with an Vision Zero implementation funding program to fund strategies and secure additional funding to support Vision Zero implementation across these various categories. So it will be an ongoing program. Looking at safer people, again, this generally goes more towards the behavioral aspects and those education aspects. So really looking on that education of all ages, including safe routes to school, as well as education for adults, especially those high-risk behaviors, speeding, distracted driving, and impaired driving, but also education on why Vision Zero is important, why speed management is important, and aspects on safety overall, a pro-social safety culture part of education, not just individual safety education. City communication training about how to effectively communicate in the media about crashes, how it's spoken about crashes, crash types, and trends, and then just education here, more data dashboard and data sharing in those educational campaigns. Moving from safer people to safer speeds, key aspect is that speed management, implement strategies, and looking at lowering of speed limits as mentioned, where permissible by the new law, AB 43, still relatively new, does allow cities on city streets to have some more flexibility. Simply changing that one sign hasn't been shown to be that effective in and of itself, but as a whole program, changing of speed limits, having enforcement, having education, and actually changing the infrastructure on those streets as a whole program can be effective, as well as that high visibility enforcement campaign. So yes, individual tickets, but especially also the ones that are really targeting a particular area, a high risk action like speed, DUI, and that media campaign all together really helps on that enforcement aspect. As well as police academy training to integrate Vision Zero principles to really focus that enforcement on what is truly going to save lives. Those actual streets, this is where a lot of the actual infrastructure countermeasures come in on those priority corridors, but really trying to hit every road in the city by looking at design review procedures and design standards, and a future update, as was mentioned, to traffic calming program, design review, really trying to get every project to incorporate safety, not just the funding of safety, which is going to be part of it, but also every project can be improve safety, as well as data analysis and bicycle and pedestrian counts as well. Going on to safer vehicles and post-crash care, trying to evaluate and promote autonomous and connected vehicle pilots. That technology can have situations and not be perfect. However, in general, that autonomous vehicle and connected vehicles does improve safety over human behavior, it has been shown. But also on the vehicle side, trying to subsidize transit and rideshare, getting people that aren't safe condition into a safe vehicle with a safe driver. Post-crash care, once it does get to that level and it is a crash, we want to have the post-crash care make it so that it's not a fatality or serious injury. That can be an emergency vehicle preemption, making sure that those emergency vehicles get there quickly. And also just looking at different measures on that response time that can be done to get them there quickly and make sure they have what they need to save the life of someone injured in a crash. Lastly, that handled both the safe vehicles and the post-crash care of those last two. So right now, we will then go back to our full poll and more feedback. So this poll, which of the actions would you like the city to prioritize? Safer people, I'm going to go through them all, and then I'll talk about instructions for in-person. Anyone can take it online. Online, that's your only option. Here, which of the actions would you like the city to prioritize? Safer people, safer education, driver behavior, safer speeds. We went through the speed management and enforcement, safer streets, roadway design and engineering, the safer vehicle aspects, post-crash care, and emergency response. So we have this question online, so people can go ahead and vote online. And in person, we're going to do a hand raise exercise. I have one question. Are they allowed here and online? One. So in this case, this is your one vote of each of these. So we're going to go through all 5 in this exercise. Which of the actions would you like the city to prioritize? So in person here, safer people. Would you like that of all of these if it was going to be number 1, safer education and driver behavior? Excuse me, it was safer people, which is safer education and driver behavior. Okay. Here we got 2. Not sure 1. Yeah, safer people. We have to do 2. Okay. Going to safer speed, speed management and enforcement. Okay, we have 1. Safer streets, roadway design and engineering. 4. Safer vehicles. And last, post-crash care. Everyone wants that when something happens, but try to get there first. So we don't need that. Yeah. Yes. All right, so on line, we had 1 for safer people, and we have 5 out of 6 for safer streets and the design and engineering components. But we did have coverage across all of them, and we do, as was mentioned, a key of the safe system approach is the redundancy. We are making recommendations in all of these areas, but this did reinforce what was mentioned before, that really we want to lead with engineering and the safer roads to really change behavior. The challenge with that is that's what costs the most money as well and can't be done overnight. But we appreciate that feedback, and I'll now turn it over.
All right, that's a great pivot to design and conceptual safety improvements. So at the table, you should have received, for those that are here in person, or we could make available a set of maps that was developed with preliminary or conceptual safety improvements that have been identified along the priority high-energy network corridors. This is also available online. There's a link that's embedded in the survey that's currently up, where you could download an electronic copy of the safety improvements map. Given the amount of time we have, I just want to tee up just to give you a flavor of some of the improvements that have been identified along a couple priority high-energy network corridors, and that starts with Monroe Street. Again, apologies. I know it's probably hard to read at the scale, so I'd encourage you to download the electronic version online or grab a hard copy before you head out this evening. But this is a slide that presents potential safety improvements along the segment of Monroe Street between San Tomas and Scott. Just to point out a few of the intersection-specific countermeasures, there's signing and striping, including high visibility crosswalk pavement markings, green bike lane pavement markings, particularly in conflict zones where there's cyclists and vehicles in potential conflict at intersections, and at just to call your attention to Scott Boulevard that's off to the right of the screen. There's a myriad of intersection improvements that have been identified, including removal of the right turn slip lanes, protected intersection treatments, which provide a raised protected refuge for cyclists and pedestrians at the intersection corners, and minimize conflicts with those vehicles that are turning right, and restriping to remove the abrupt merge that's been noted just to the east of the Scott intersection. So that's a mix of fairly inexpensive, easy to implement signage and striping improvements. But in the case for removal of right turn slip lanes, we understand that those are more infrastructure heavy in terms of implementation. But as Mike pointed out earlier, that's really effective in reducing reducing speeds for those right turners. There's certainly a number of right turn slip lanes or that free right turns with the pork chop islands that present a condition where pedestrians have an uncontrolled crossing to get to the pork chop island to then push the button. So that's a highly effective safety countermeasure that's proposed here at Scott and elsewhere along the priority corridors. At the segment level, speed feedback signs, restriping, and warning signs for the trail crossing west of San Tomas. Moving on to Scott Boulevard, this particular segment is, as you can see, from Monroe to El Camino Real. At the intersections, again, removing right turn slip lanes, protected intersection treatments, bulb outs, which are highly effective. Oftentimes you could take back space, so to speak, from removal of the right turn slip lanes and use that right away to provide bulb outs, which narrow or reduce the crossing distance for pedestrians to cross the intersection. Obviously with reduction in the crossing distance, that's a reduction in the pedestrian exposure time where pedestrians are exposed to the vehicular traffic. Also potential new signals with pedestrian crossings that are marked at Cabrillo Avenue and Bray. And at the Warburton intersection, protected left turn at the side street. So that's similar to comments that were made earlier. Warburton here with north being left on the page. So I'm talking about the Warburton approaches, the Minor Street approaches in the eastbound and westbound direction, providing a protected left turn phase so that left turns are not yielding to ongoing through traffic and pedestrians that are crossing the crosswalk at all, or crosswalk concurrently, I should say. And along the segment, class 2 buffered bike lanes provide raised elements for physical separation between vehicles and cyclists. And El Camino Real, our third example here from, in this case, Lawrence to Bowers. At the intersections, particularly at the intersection at Lawrence, we've seen more and more at entrances to freeway off-ramps and high-speed expressways, the use of RRFB, or rectangular rapid flashing beacon, LED enhanced beacons that provide illumination for or at pedestrian crossings, for uncontrolled crossings, as being an effective safety countermeasure. At Pomeroy, El Camino Real at the Pomeroy intersection, just to the right of the page. Also eliminating right turn slip lanes, but also providing mast arm mounted traffic signals in the northbound and southbound direction. And that could be applied elsewhere in the city where there's not signal indications that are mounted overhead, which are much more effective from a visibility standpoint from ongoing motorists. So that's just a few of many examples. Again, I'd encourage you to take a look at the safety concepts that were preliminarily developed. The draft Vision Zero plan will also have more refined safety improvement concepts that are included, and we encourage you to review and provide comments at that time. Before pivoting off of the engineering countermeasures, just wanted to reiterate the need for a focus of the non-engineering countermeasures, and that includes enforcement, enforcement of traffic laws, enforcement of DUI and speeding and other unsafe driver behavior, as well as the education and outreach activities that really play a critical role in addition to the engineering aspects. All right, as we wrap up here, with the vision of what happens after the plan is adopted, after the plan is finalized and adopted next year, the city will share information on the action plan strategies that have been implemented and the programs that have been established. And that's for transparency and being able to monitor progress over time post-implementation. We'll also be monitoring collision trends and collaborating closely with the Vision Zero Working Group and other stakeholders to continually assess the safety challenges and safety performance towards Vision Zero. The city will also pursue grant funding. There's several funding programs that are out there and available for funding safety infrastructure improvements at the regional, the state, and the local level. And the federal level, I should say. The city will also look to incorporate Vision Zero projects and programs into the city's capital improvement program and ongoing programs and processes. And as mentioned earlier, the traffic calming program being one of those policies that's going to provide an opportunity to provide an updated traffic calming program that's more geared towards the local road network, and other initiatives. There's others that are surrounding the Safe Systems approach that Mike had mentioned. Other initiatives that are inclusive of education, outreach campaigns that are really geared towards raising awareness to promote safer driver behavior for all road users, motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians. I know we shared this earlier in the presentation, but just wanted to reiterate that the draft plan is going to be published for public review and comment late August, early September timeframe. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully you've had a chance. Bless you. There's also an email distribution list. So if you hadn't already signed up for the email distribution, I'd encourage you to do so on the city's website so that you can receive a notification of when the draft plan is published for review. And with that, that concludes our presentation. So I think we're going to entertain questions now, both in the room and online.
Once again, folks online, we'll take questions from the room first, and then we'll move over to the Q&A. So thanks for your patience.
Yeah, real quick. On South Drive, for the past several months, it's been designated a fully shared road between bicycles and vehicles. and it has a very modest speed limit. I think it's only the bikes that are meeting the speed limit criteria. The vehicles are going through there at least twice the rated speed. What's the chance of having, at least temporarily, a nice little speed sensor light with which I see in many other cities nearby? Your speed is, and it tells you exactly what your speed is. There's a, it's sensing it and it's indicating to the driver, so they will realize that they're exceeding the speed limit. And this is a detour for people trying to, take a shortcut to go from one place to another. So they're not at all following the rules, and I don't see any policing. I haven't seen anybody. I live very near to that. I haven't seen anybody pulled over for speeding, but it's pretty consistent. So I'd like to see something happen there. Thank you.
I think what you're referring to are the speed feedback trailers, and the police department manages that. We'll certainly take note and provide that comment, but I would encourage you to also provide the comment in writing that we could pass along to the police department representative on the Vision Zero working group, because I know that they're continually seeking input on what locations to install those temporary speed feedback trailers.
Betsy, I saw you had your hand raised.
So I gave you my written comments on the packet from the other day. I've had a week to process those. I'll call out a couple of them if you're willing to go back to the slide. I think it was the first slide showing pictures of a street was Scott Boulevard at or Monroe at Scott or something like that. The very first one in the presentation, maybe. Is this it? Yeah, I think so. So Monroe at Scott, that southeast corner is a logjam for all of the reasons you've identified, and also the Arteaga's parking lot is a zoo. So there are people pulling in and out, and it's, get across and suddenly slow down and make a right turn in a hurry when somebody else is trying to pull out. That's a really good example of a place that, we can recommend, we can sit in this room and look at a map and recommend a treatment. But until you go out and look at that and see what is going on there, I don't think you get the whole picture. So in general, I think really go stand there, go stand on the sidewalk and see how people are behaving. I didn't raise my hand earlier about the education, because the people who most need that message are the ones who are not reading the website, who are not attending the class, who are not paying any attention. The hardest to reach are the ones who most need it. And I don't know how we reach them, but putting another article on the website isn't it. We started this process with a map-based survey with specific location, I hate crossing the street kinds of feedback. Are we capturing that? Are we preserving that somehow so that we can go back and look and see, when we get around to the part of the high injury network that maybe isn't on one of these pieces of paper, what people were complaining about? Because I think that's really important. I think that's how you get the part about Arteaga's parking lot is a big part of the bottleneck in that particular intersection. I will call out one more of the things that I wrote down in those notes. And that is that we have at least 3 different speed limits the length of Homestead Road. East of San Tomas, it's 25 miles an hour, which is as it should be. It should be enforced better than it is, but I agree with that. Immediately west of San Tomas, it's 30 for a little ways, and then it's 40. The posted speed limit on Homestead Road is 40 miles an hour. And as you cross into Sunnyvale, it's actually 35. So I have suggested in that packet that that would be a prime candidate for an AB 43 speed reduction, is that 40 mile per hour section of Homestead Road. It makes it, just to pull it down to 35, makes it consistent with the other corridors going that way, makes it consistent with what Sunnyvale's doing, and makes one of our few existing east-west bike lanes just a little more tolerable, if assuming people actually do the speed limit. One thing I don't think I wrote down, maybe I did just now in that packet. There's several places where you have put marking for high visibility crosswalks. I assume those are the sort of piano key style ones as opposed to just lines. If you think you need a more high visibility crosswalk, please use that as a cue to prioritize marking a red zone for daylighting. I know that the city has been kind of gradually working its way through what it considers high traffic zones, but if we need the crosswalk to be visible, we most of all need the people in it to be visible. And some of these that I see crosswalks across T intersections, and it's not intuitive to people that they need to not park in front of the crosswalk at a T intersection. So that may be one place that we need to pay attention to actually painting that red curb. I think I mentioned this on last Monday at the BPAC meeting. I have a little bit different version of that, but the Santa Clara County Roads has the beginnings of a plan to take the Santa Aquino Creek Trail 2 miles further south from Homestead to Moore Park. And they haven't thought about it a whole lot yet. They have told us that they're thinking about it, and that's as far as they've gotten. This is the time to give input on that. What I'm wondering is how that ought to happen. And this is maybe a broader question, but I know that we have some input as to how they build in our city and what they build in our city. But we have, the county just passed an active transportation plan. It doesn't seem to me like they've figured out what to do about the intersections where that trail follows the expressway. And the intersections are the hard part. We in Santa Clara have several intersections like that already. And we need to be involved when they build the next ones in making them better, because those are the scary parts. And I guess I am wondering, for all of the speed feedback signs that are mentioned in this packet, how effective they are versus other treatments at actually slowing down traffic. And I also wonder if any of the ones, I see some sort of upstream of Wilcox High School on Monroe, And I'm wondering if the plan is to run them at all times or to run them as the ones on Los Padres in front of Hayman School are just during school hours. And I ask that because, they run during school drop-off and pickup hours. You go by there at 9 p.m. And I've been had to been 40, 45 miles an hour on Los Padres, which is supposed to be a 25-mile-an-hour residential side street. So I really wonder how effective those signs are versus other things we could be doing. I will leave it there. Please read the notes in my packet. Email me if I need to translate any of the handwriting.
Thanks, Betsy. We'll record these in the packet too as well. Anything there to address as well?
No, well, thank you for the comments. Really good feedback. I really like your idea about using the opportunity for crosswalk enhancements to also prioritize the red curbing for daylighting to provide that visual and that seems like a really opportune time to do so. But we'll review your comments more thoroughly and see what we can incorporate into the plan. Thank you.
I know we have several questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to read a few from those and we'll go over. All right. First up, do the countermeasure tools address the El Camino corridor? The question is asking if it is not Caltrans managed, working in sync with the City Vision Zero program. So how does, El Camino managed by Caltrans work with the city's program?
Yeah, the safety countermeasures that were developed and are included in the toolbox are intended to be applicable at all facilities, so citywide, including county expressways and Caltrans facilities on El Camino Real specifically. The grant applications or the grant programs that I referenced earlier, those generally provide really good. They score highly the projects that are done collaboratively between agencies, including city and Caltrans, or city and its neighboring jurisdictions, and that those partnerships for implementation of safety improvements at those shared facilities are oftentimes scored very competitively, depending on the nature of the improvements. With that said, the improvements that have been identified would have to go through, in the case for county expressways, county review and approval, and similarly for El Camino Real, improvements would have to be coordinated with Caltrans, with the state for future implementation efforts. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, and I'll just add to it. My name is Nicole He, again, working for the city. We are actively coordinating with Caltrans, specifically related to the bikeway project that we will be implementing in the future. So eventually, like Robert said, these improvements will go through Caltrans before we actually design and construct these.
Thanks, Nicole. All right, next question. Will the emergency vehicle preemption include ambulances or police?
A good question. The EVP, emergency vehicle preemption, is technology that's inclusive of fire, police, and ambulances. The city would have to work closely. I don't know for certain if all of the agencies, the responding agencies, are equipped with the onboard equipment. So that's something that we'll have to clarify. But I know that PD and fire do. They have onboard units, transmitters to be able to utilize the functionality of emergency vehicle preemption at the signalized intersections.
Great, thank you. We have a comment here at Monroe at Stacked. Please consider left turn pockets for bikes, eastbound Monroe to the northbound trail and westbound Monroe to the southbound trail. A left turn signal would also be nice.
Okay, noted. Yeah, we'll note that.
Thank you. And then another Question related to other plans. How would our city's Vision Zero plan work together with all the surrounding cities? So we can all work together, especially in emergencies, post-accident care, et cetera.
Good question. I should have mentioned as part of the Vision Zero working group, we do have members of the adjacent cities. So we have a representative from the city of Sunnyvale and the city of San Jose, as well as Santa Clara County representatives. So they are part of the ongoing discussions as it relates to not only Vision Zero, but safety improvements and safety challenges in general. As part of the future implementation efforts and reconvening the working group, topics such as that could be included and agendized for additional and further discussion.
Great. All right. Phil, I see you have your hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute. And if we have any trouble with your audio, go ahead and put it in the Q&A and we'll read it out loud. So if you want to go ahead and you're off mute now. All right, Phil, I'm sorry. I think we'll have you put it in the Q&A and then we'll read it out loud and make sure it gets answered. In the meantime, Ken, go ahead and ask your questions.
Yeah, thank you. My first question, I have a few, is informational, this is in regard to several attendees mentioning more enforcement. I've gone to a few of these Vision Zero meetings. My question, is information available from the city police department in regard to how much time they spend on traffic enforcement, speeding specifically, and will the Vision Zero report include that information as well as comparisons with the time spent on speed limit enforcement by adjacent cities?
Ken, that information and data has not been provided by PD and nor will it be included in the Vision Zero plan. I'm wondering if that could be a direct request to PD. We're not privy to that information.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll bring it up in the working group. The next question, and this was considered in the development of automobiles a long time ago. Let's see. Oh, I've lost it. Hold on. Things are bouncing around here. Would speed governors installed in existing and new motor vehicles be a way to reduce motor vehicle speeds and thereby reduce severity of collisions? The reason I reintroduced this, I've read the history of traffic engineering in a great book called Fighting Traffic by Peter Norton out of the MIT Press. And that was advocated back when the automobile was being developed in the early 1900s. Could we revisit that now due to all the new electronic goodies? Could we have, signal generators along on poles along our streets that would trip a governor in a car that comes into our city or, traveling on our city streets? So it could distinguish between 25 mile per hour, 30, 40, et cetera. Is there any possibility of that? And I know this is part of Vision Zero, is to look at what we can do to improve the vehicles that operate on our streets. That's one of the, what do they call it? Safe approaches to these problems.
Yeah, so that is, this is Mike Colte, that is something that is, out there internationally and something that's being discussed in addition to the speed governors, even potentially sooner would be DUI, impaired driving, alcohol detection of drivers is being out there. Other aspects is would kind of fall in that same realm. Also the possibility of just putting the speed governors for excessive speeders and allowing them to continue to drive. But with that, for certain vehicles, let alone possibility of all. The challenges with that as a specific city of Santa Clara action is that it's such a huge task to get that passed legislatively. So it's something that can be tracked and to answer your question, would it help? Yes, that's just a challenge of there are significant hurdles to getting that requirement in place, although those are being taken place, international and a national level, but to have really city time, it's not something that can be just, my knowledge, nothing that can be implemented just in the city of Santa Clara. That's a much broader safety initiative.
Yeah, thank you. My last question, thank you for that answer because it segues into my next question. Can you, I'm asking, can you please provide links in your Vision Zero report to advocacy groups working to increase safety on our streets at the city, county, state, and federal levels? And I would just say, like the governors that we just talked about, speed governors on vehicles, I thought that was very intriguing. Maybe make it a requirement for a speeder or a drunk driver to have those on, or maybe other groups that do make problems on the street. That's very intriguing. Could we have links to groups that are advocating for those things to speed up the process? My understanding is the BPAC at our city level makes recommendations to the city council, and we can, as a BPAC, we can make recommendations to the city council to write letters to all these higher jurisdictions so that we can get this started. Somewhat in the idea of how governors get together across the United States, how city managers get together in groups across the United States to force these issues at the appropriate government level. And obviously governors would be something at probably the state or federal level. So anyway, getting back to my main point, can you include advocacy groups and maybe specifically on some of these safe approaches where we can put our time to advocate for some of these larger issues that you say are not very approachable at the city level?
Yeah, we will look to include key resources as a resource of these that are happening outside of a city as a resource. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we have the question from Phil, and Phil, no worries about the audio. Thanks for putting it in the Q&A. And I will note that this is the last question we've received via the Q&A function in Zoom. So if there's no more after this, we're going to go ahead and close the online portion of tonight's meeting, and then we'll pivot more to the any additional questions in person. So if you are joining us in line, please feel free to put those questions in the Q&A or raise your hand if you have any further questions, or follow up with us online via our website, the project email or voicemail. But moving towards Phil's question, if we'd like to provide feedback about other intersections not currently categorized as high injury networks, what would be the best way to relay that?
Good question. I would encourage you to send that via the project email address. If it's a comment that was not provided in the online survey with the interactive map as part of our first survey, if you hadn't provided in that forum, I would encourage you to use the email address to send that.
And I can put that in the Q&A response to that email address. So I'll drop that in right now.
Yep. And it's currently shown on the slide. So the Santa Clara Vision Zero at kimley-horn.com. There's also the voicemail number as well as the Vision Zero webpage.
All right, thank you, Phil. Thanks, Robert. All right, I do not see any other questions in the Q&A for now. So for attendees joining us online, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and close the virtual portion of this meeting. We hope you all have a good evening and stay safe. And the recording will be posted online afterwards. So thanks so much and have a great night.